Hello, my little mathematicians. Today we're going to explore two-step equations. Okay, now how do you solve a two-step equations? The first thing you want to do is you want to simplify the expressions on each side of the equal sign, if necessary. Sometimes you don't have to. Now, what simplify means is sometimes you might have to distribute something, or you might have to combine like terms, or in here, like, you could do inside the parentheses first. So anything that can be distributed or combined on one side of the equal sign, so like focus on one side, then focus on the other, do that first. Then you want to try to isolate the variable by doing the inverse operation. Again, the inverse of operation would be like the inverse of subtraction is addition, the inverse of addition is subtraction, the inverse of division would be multiplication, and the inverse of multiplication would be division. Because you want to try to undo it to get it to cancel out, so then eventually you get the variable by itself. Now, the tricky part is you want to do it in the reverse order of PEMDAS. We're really used to saying anything that's multiplied or divided gets done before addition or subtraction. But since we're undoing them, we're doing the inverse steps, we do that in the reverse order, okay, of PEMDAS. And then, of course, always substitute your answer back in to check to the original equation to make sure that it gets a true statement at the end. And if you're like, oh, it's stupid, I can just do it in my head. How many times have you maybe done like 2 plus 3 is 6 instead of 5? And then you get your quiz back and you're like, no, I knew 2 plus 3 was 5. Had you taken the time to plug the thing back into check, hopefully you wouldn't have caught your mistake and erased it and retried it. Okay, that's why we check. Okay, let's look at the first one. I drew a line down through my equal sign, and then I want to get the variable by itself. So should I do the thing that's being multiplied with it, or added or subtracted first? Undo the addition or subtraction first. So how do you get rid of that -4? The inverse of -4 is to add 4. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other in order to keep the equation balanced. Because it starts off like, think of it like a scale, it's balanced. And then if you do something to one side, it makes it unbalanced. And then as long as you do the same thing to the other side, it brings it back into balance again. Okay, so whatever you do to one side, do to the other. Now I added 4 so that those cancel, because 4 minus 4 is 0. Now you have 2x equals 16 plus 4 is 20. Now, unfortunately, x still isn't by itself. I want to get rid of that 2. What's happening with the 2 in the variable? They're being multiplied, and the inverse of multiplying is to divide. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Anything divided by itself is 1, right? So you have 1 times x with the just x. Woohoo, we got the variable by itself. We have to do the same thing to the other side, so divide it by 2 as well, and 20 divided by 2 is 10. Okay, so you'd write 10 in the answer column on a quiz, and then before you move on, maybe you just want to double check and make sure that it's right. So here's my original equation. I'm going to replace or substitute in what I think the answer for x is, and if it ends with a true statement, you can move on. You know you're right. 2 times 10 is 20, minus 4 equals 16. Simplify, 20 minus 4 is 16, equals 16. Woohoo, that's a true statement. 16 does equal 16, so I know that 10 was the right answer. I can move on to number 2. Okay, what should I do first to get y by itself? I need to get rid of the plus 6. How do you get rid of plus 6? Minus 6. And whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. And 41 minus 6 is 35, equals, bring down the 5y, and 6 minus 6 is 0. It cancels. Y is almost by itself, but how do I get rid of this 5? Well, what's happening with the 5 and the y? They're being multiplied. So what's the inverse of multiplying? To divide. Whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. 35 divided by 5 is 7, equals 5 divided by 5 is 1. 1 times y is y. Perfect. I solved for it. Now let's just double check to make sure I got it right. So replace your variable. You think y is 7. Let's see if it makes a true statement. Okay, 41 equals 5 times 7 is 35 plus 6. And 35 plus 6 is 41. Bring down the other side. True statement. So now you know for sure that you got it right. And so you'd put 7 in the answer column. Okay, number 3. How do you get x by itself? What should you do first? Get rid of that plus 11. How do you get rid of plus 11? Subtract 11. Whatever you do to one side, you got to do the other. So now you have x over 7 equals, what is 39 minus 11? It's 28. Okay, is x by itself yet? Not yet. What's happening with the x and the 7? They're being divided. And what's the inverse of dividing? Multiplying. Whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. And the reason I did that is that these canceled out because they cross cancel. And you're like, what do you mean they cross canceled? Okay, let me see here. So remember when you are dealing with fractions and you're like, oh, 3 can go into both of these. So 6 divided by 3 is 2 and 3 divided by 3 is 1. But if you have the same number across from each other, they cross cancel to become 1 for both of them because 4 can go into both. 4 divided by 4 is 1 and 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay, that's what's happening here. The 7s are across from each other. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. That 7 divided by 7 is 1. And 1 times x is just x. So you got x by itself. That's why I multiplied by 7 to get it to cancel and get x by itself. But whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So 28 times 7 is 196. Okay, now let's double check and make sure that 196 is indeed the right answer. So let's replace my variable with what I think the answer is and see if it makes a true statement at the end once I simplify it. Well, 196 divided by 7, what do you get? My calculator says I get 28 plus 11. Okay, type in 28 plus 11. You get 39. Bring down the equals 39. Perfect. True statement. So that is indeed the right answer, 196. Okay, number 4. What do you do first? If you haven't tried any of these on your own, hit pause, try them, and then unpause it and come back and check. Okay, so for this one, hopefully you got rid of the minus 8 first, which means I needed to add 8 to get them to cancel. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. 58 plus 8 is 66 equals y over 6. Y still isn't by itself. The inverse of dividing by 6 is to multiply by 6, so those cancel. And whatever you do to one side, do to the other. So 6 times 66 is 396 equals y. And to check, here's my original. And I'm going to replace my variable with what I think it is, 396. And when you do that, 396 divided by 6, type that into my calculator, I get 66 minus 8, and 66 minus 8, I get 58. Perfect. True statement. So 396 was indeed the right answer. Okay. For this one, okay, I want to do inside the parentheses first. 4 plus 2 is 6. And then if this was a tricky one, like 6, let's say it was 6 over 4, then you could have multiplied by the reciprocal of this, but this can reduce. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So you have 3x equals 9. Okay, and then how do you get x by itself? Well, these are being multiplied, so the inverse of multiplying is to divide. And whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. 9 divided by 3 is 3 equals 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times x is x. Okay, there was a lot going on there, so let's definitely double check this one. Okay, 4 plus 2 times 3 over 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18. And 18 divided by 2 is 9. So bring down the left side and true statement. So yes, 3 was indeed the right answer. Okay, for this one, 3 plus 2 is 5, y over 3. Okay, now unlike here, we could reduce 6 divided by 2 is 3, right? But here, if I type this in 5 divided by 3 into my calculator, I get a gross answer. So let's instead multiply by the reciprocal to get it to cancel out. Okay, so the reciprocal of 5 over 3 is 3 over 5. Those cross cancel and become 1. These cross cancel and become 1. So now you have 1 times y, or just y. I can do that as long as I do the same thing to the other side and multiply it by 3 over 5 as well. Okay, you can multiply across. 3 times 15 is 45 over 5 is 45 divided by 5 is 9. Okay, or I like to cross cancel, and then you would have put 3 times 3 is 9 over 1, and 9 over 1 is 9. Okay, either way. And again, since these are tricky, I strongly recommend that you always just play it safe and plug it back in to check, just to catch yourself in case you accidentally made a math error. Okay, 9 is what we think the answer is. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 times 9 is 45. And 45 divided by 3 is 15. Perfect. True statement. So yes, 9 is indeed correct. Okay, this one. Notice how it says challenge, because you can't combine the numerator because these aren't like terms. So I can't combine the 3x and the 5. For the denominator, you can only reduce it if it could go into both numbers up here, and it can't. Okay, so here I could reduce because there's only the one number and 2 could go in, but here 2 can't go into 3 and 5, so I just have to leave it alone. So what I'm going to do is I want to get rid of that denominator by multiplying by it so that they cancel out. They cross cancel and become 1, and now you just have the numerator of 3x plus 5. Because remember, this becomes 1, this becomes 1. 3x plus 5 times 1 is just 3x plus 5. Over 1 is still just 3x plus 5. That's why I multiplied by that denominator to get it to cancel out. You can do that as long as you do the same thing to the other side. Now 2 times 16 is 32. Okay, that looks much easier to deal with. So it's just like one of the ones up top now. What would you do first to get x by itself? You want to get rid of that 5. What's the inverse of plus 5? Minus 5, so that they cancel. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. What is 32 minus 5? Well, 32 minus 5 is 27 equals 3x. How do you get x by itself? Well, the 3 and the x are being multiplied, so the inverse of multiplying is to divide. 27 divided by 3 is 9. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 1 times x is just x. Okay, let's see if we did that right. 3 times 9 plus 5 over 2. 3 times 9 is 27. 27 plus 5, I get 32. And 32 divided by 2 is 16. Perfect, true statement. So it is indeed 9. Okay, last one. It's very similar to this, so why don't you give it a try? Okay, you can't combine these because they're not like terms. 3 can't go into both of these, so I just want to get rid of it. How do you do that? Multiply by whatever is in the denominator so it cancels. Now you have 2x plus 10 equals whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. 3 times 12 is 36. Now it's a lot simpler. I can subtract 10 from both sides, so those cancel. And you get 2x equals, well, 36 minus 10 is 26. And to get x by itself, divide by 2. 26 divided by 2 is 13 equals, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times x is x. Okay, let's double check that the answer is indeed 13. Well, 2 times 13 is 26. 26 plus 10 is 36. And 36 divided by 3 is 12. True statement. So, yep, 13 was indeed the right answer. For this quiz, it's really nice. You can almost turn it in knowing how many questions you'll miss, because as long as you check them all, if you ended with a true statement, you can know that you got the right answer, right? It's the way to catch yourself in case you made a silly math error. So really take the time to plug your answers back in and check. All right? You got this, my little mathematicians. You're going to do great.